but I'll go ahead and do the intro, and then you can, when you upload it, it'll just be there. I'll
Sweet.
maybe cut off this little part. So, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is
Yay.
Genevieve, and we're here with Sheri today, who
Sheri?
is Lady Phoenix underscore
Mm-hmm.
111. Or is it
Yeah,
one? It's 3 1s, right?
three
And you can
ones.
see her in the link. So
Mm-hmm.
we have some questions for Sheri today about some of the neurodivergent symptoms that we all
Mm-hmm.
experience. And I'm not really
Mm-hmm.
that familiar with the terminology of some of them.
Mm-hmm.
Mark from our other live stream was asking some questions. And in just a little bit, when we get people on our stream, we're going to wait it out for just a few minutes for people to filter in.
Mm-hmm.
And then she'll be answering some of our questions. So if you are neurodivergent, ADHD, or autistic,
Mm-hmm.
these topics might really help you. And so, but
Mm-hmm.
just for a few minutes, we're just going to chit chat until the live gets filled up. So you were just about to tell me something before we went live to
Um,
talk to you.
Yesterday I started just filming a very casual video. It was just after I left the live stream, and you and I can talk later when you were not having a good day. And I just wanted to talk to you because I knew, like, if you
We can
were
talk
just
about
like,
that.
you were like a mirror, and it was freaking me out. And then towards the end, and I don't want you to feel bad because these are things I have to work on. I wasn't getting triggered, but I had to pull away. But I did promise myself that I was going to leave at 1, and I was going to try to be early to work, and I wasn't. But that is the eternal struggle that is ADHD and time blindness. But yeah, I started doing a little one where it was just like a once over, starting to, hello, somebody's giving us hearts.
That's Jonathan.
Hi, Jono.
Can you explain just real quick for people who might be new to their diagnosis or their self-discovery, what is time blindness?
I am still trying to figure out exactly what causes it. I did find some ADHD memes. So basically, from one person that helps, she is a coach that helps neurodivergent children and some adults. And she's the only one that explained that there's an actual part in the back of your brain that senses the passing of time. There are some other theories I've seen talking about, well, because if you have ADHD, you're going to be distractible, right? So that might be why, too. And but they don't talk about the other things. So I think that we're probably in the process of learning about it right now. But for me, I'll just tell you what it's like. I could be at home, like my fiance could have gone to work, like today happens to be a day off. And like, for instance, when I looked at the clock at 2, I literally thought it was 12 and I lose time. And I can do something and I wonder, I'm like, is like my brain like slowing down that much as so it seems like it's going slower or something, and I look up and then it's like 3 hours later. So yeah, and there's another woman, I can't remember her name. She actually used to do Pilo. It was like some Pilates, and it's on the Beachbody thing, and so she's like one of those exercise people. And she has ADHD, so she does content on here. And I just watched a video from her yesterday, and she's like, time blindness. We are really sorry if we're an inconvenience to you. Please do us a favor. If this is soon, we might be, she goes, I can't tell the difference between 10 minutes and 2 hours because literally you're not perceiving it. So I can read a clock. I'm not, like, we're not dumb. We can read it. We know when we look at it what time it is, but for other people like neurotypicals, they can feel the passing of time and they know to look up. Now, I did notice when I start taking ADHD medicine that helped with that somewhat.
Interesting.
I didn't space out as much. It doesn't make it go away completely. So I'm not really sure how it works. I know that both autistic people and ADHD people can struggle with executive functioning. I'm not sure if any autistic people struggle with time blindness. But yeah, people
I
say
think
it's
I
not
do.
real. People
I
say
think
it's
I
not
do.
real, but it is.
Well, so
So,
this is how I feel about time and money. They're man-made constructs, and I just don't have that program.
yep.
Time and money aren't really
Hmm.
real. We live in the now, which is always.
That's what she said. So her trick was, I've heard a couple of tricks for this. So if anybody here, hello everyone, thank you for the compliments. Some people complimented us. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you for being on, you guys. Go
What
ahead.
was I saying?
If you look at the chat, you're going to get distracted. Just don't look at the chat right now.
I'm not. I just
We'll
literally
come
lost my train of thought.
So we were talking about time
Time blindness.
blindness and how
It's so weird. It makes me
yeah.
feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone. It's bizarre. It's bizarre. Like sometime I could be, when it's really bad, even if I take medicine, if it's a day that my symptoms are really bad, and I'm starting to realize now that I'm becoming aware of burnouts, that on the days like today, my energy is really low because I had a stressful day yesterday. And so usually the day after I work, I tend to withdraw, especially when I work 2 days in a row. Next day, I would tell my friends and family, I'm not going to respond to you and I'm very sorry, but I need to rest. And I know that people wouldn't understand that and they'll get mad at me. But if that's what I need to do to use the rest of the week productively, that's what I'm going to do. One day in bed to get my energy back will give me a couple of productive days. But yeah, if my symptoms for being burned out and my energy is low, it does happen more. Yeah,
Oh,
I could like,
absolutely. It's the same thing with autism. You know, if you are tired and burned out, your triggers are going to make it easier for like a full meltdown. And a meltdown is a neurological fight, flight, or freeze. And for me, I
yeah,
have to sleep. I can't just go back to normal. I
I
have to
know it.
sleep it off,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. But yeah, I could sit down with a planner or tell my fiance, he goes, what are you going to do today? Well, I'm going to do these things. I might actually write it in my planner. And then I'm looking at YouTube or I'm looking at something on my phone. And it feels to me like I think, okay, I'll unwind. I'll like wake up, have my coffee. I'm just going to do this for a little while and I'm going to get up and clean and do this, that, and the other. And it feels like I've only been sitting there half an hour. And then he walks in the door and the whole day's over. And I'm like, what the bleep just happened? And it makes you feel crazy. But I just don't, it doesn't, we all have the same parts in our brains, but that one just
No,
doesn't work.
I'm going to say no to that. No.
Well, I will have proof on that because that's going to be part of my channel.
Good.
I'm going to have a whole folder. I've been learning about the neurology of the brain. So I did see how I know that the shape is a little bit different of the brain. And actually I'm going to have a couple of series and I've been last week trying to figure out how can I organize all these things I want to share? Because there's a lot. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I was getting overwhelmed. I was going to talk about executive dysfunction, and then I was having executive dysfunction where I was like, I can't do it. And it was like so ironic, but I was frozen. So yeah, one series of videos is going to be all about learning about what systems work for you, whether it's planners, time management. For me, I'm going to start with the planner I'm using now because I have to get back on track myself. My planner ends in the summer in June and it starts in July. So I haven't started my new planner. And because of that month I was studying, I have not done my daily things that keep me on track. And so for me, now you know how they talk about the spectrum not just being like, now we know that other things are included besides autism. So ADHD and autism are considered neurodivergent. They're also learning about OCD is under the spectrum. There's a couple other things, maybe bipolar, but there are neurological, physical differences in our brains.
Well, and I think let me interject here. They've determined that different species of animals perceive time slower or faster than us. They hear things at a different frequency, like dogs hear our
Whales,
voices. Dogs hear our voices like this, and so when we talk like this, it's and then cats are the opposite. And I actually think that
interesting.
there might actually be something in our brains where we literally perceive time at a different speed.
Well, I was curious. I want to get some actual see if there's any actual studies about this. And I like studies because, if you get them from PubMed, which is a government website, it's going to be peer reviewed. You can go to Mayo Clinic. There's a couple other, instead of just going to any Tom, Dick, or Harry website, especially ones that sell things, they're just people like us, and they might be very knowledgeable, but you have to go to peer reviewed ones, because anything that is peer reviewed, it's reviewed by multiple experts in the field. They've actually double checked the work of the people who did the study, and they verified that whatever they're putting there is fact. So, studies are not perfect, but I'd like to get into the nuts and bolts and find out if there is something like anatomically different that
So
is
I
part
just
of that.
learned there's a new
I know
study
we
that just
are,
came
but
out by UC Davis. It just was published just this year, like in May.
mhm.
And that's the thing where they discovered that autistic girls, babies, have a much thicker
Yes.
cortex than other, even autistic boys. Of course, neurotypicals, they have a very thick cortex. And then at a specific time in their development, it rapidly thins.
Can
All
you send
autistic
that to me?
girls. Yeah, totally. UC Davis, autistic cortex girls, you'd find it, but yeah, I'll send it to you. Just so you know, Mark is driving and listening. So I
Hi,
would
Mark.
love, it looks like we've been in 11 minutes now, so it looks like maybe we're not going to get the flood of people that we do. So let's just go ahead and get started. So what I wanted to ask you about is something that Mark had said in our previous live stream today, and why we
Mhm.
started this one. And
Mhm.
that is, so he's kind of realizing from our other live chat that he's somewhere on the spectrum, neurodivergent,
Okay.
something or other.
Yep. Okay.
And so we were talking about a lot of that earlier, but then he's like, I just can't really tell what's going on with my body, something like that. And so I knew that you knew the name of it and how to kind of
Yes.
explain that. So I'm going to turn it over to you to explain, why is it and what is it about neurodivergence where we can't exactly tell, are we in pain?
Yeah.
Are we hungry? Are
Right,
we...
right, right. And I just found that out recently. There's a couple of really good content creators for autism, and some of them have both autism and ADHD. But I think Mike, which is autistic AF, he had an explanation. Oh, it was in a live stream where he said that he doesn't get the messages from his body. Oh, and there was another one, Molly. She's from England. She's very hyper. She's got ADHD and autism. And she has this as well. And I don't always have it. But if I'm really, really hyper focused, I don't feel the messages. So when you're engaged in what you're doing and you're not getting the messages, sometimes people who are neurodivergent, and it's probably different for everyone, because it seems like, ooh, there's a really good video. I did put it on my channel. So it's a PBS one. I mentioned it to you. I put it, if you guys go to my channel and look under playlist and look for one that says, what is neurodivergence? Go to the very first video. It's a PBS one, and it explains some of this. But so they call that poor interoception. So, and forgive me, I'm just learning about this as well. So I know some things, but I'm still learning others. So this is one of the benefits that I think these lives and connecting with community here on YouTube has been really invaluable for me, because I've been able to learn about things that I wasn't exposed to before. But so interoception basically means your body is getting the messages. Like your body, your brain's getting the message, oh, I'm hungry, I have to stop, I need to go eat something, or I'm lightheaded, or I have to pee, or this or that. For me, it's when I get engrossed. Maybe some people get it more than others, I don't know. But Mike from Mike AF, he was saying he gets it to the point that by the time he gets the message that he has to pee, like he doesn't know at all. And then he'll be in the middle of a live stream and he'll be like, I'll be right back. He says, by the time he gets the message from his body telling him he has to pee, he's got to go. And it's like an emergency. So he runs up the stairs and be like, I'll be right back. And he had to do that and come back. So I didn't feel so bad. For me, one of the days I was studying and I was up in my mom's house, and I was figuring out how to print out the articles, and I was getting so frustrated. And then I added an extra one in case I failed one. And then I was editing it, and it was taking forever. So then by the time I realized how long I had been up there, so I started doing it. My mom left to go movie night with a neighbor, and she came back. For me, it felt like it was 15 minutes, 20 minutes. I'm like, you're back fast. She's like, no, we watched a movie and we hung out. And I'm like, okay. And then she sat down. She goes, you can stay as long as you want. And then she was watching TV. And finally, I realized, how long have I been up here? I might have started at 3, and it was like after 8 p.m. And I'm like, wow. Like, I didn't even think. I was so engrossed when I was doing. I didn't even think, do I need to go to the bathroom? Do I need to drink something? Do I need to eat? I didn't get the feeling. Yeah, it's called poor interoception.
But
so
what about getting hyper focused on something?
I'm sure that's, well, at least for me, I'm sure that's a part of it. Because when I'm at work, I want my break.
Right.
Because I want.
Do you know what's the?
And then I'm paying attention.
What's the term for being hyper focused on something, or is it just called hyper focus?
Hyper focus.
Okay.
I forget. Yeah, a hyper focus for me is kind of like the Matrix. Stick a cable to my brain. Whoosh. You know, it's like all coming at once. And there's good and bad to that. I know that they had said for a while that's our superpower. So it's kind of ironic. ADHD, in my case, I have ADHD. I might also have autism, but I don't know. Genevieve, you've been diagnosed with autism. So I might not have it, but I have some similar symptoms because there's so much of an overlap.
Right.
So for me, I'm just figuring that part out now. And where did Mark go? Is Mark the one who's
listening? He's driving and listening. Yeah, he's not commenting. But
when you're done driving, don't text when you're driving. Please, we want you to live. We want you to be well. Do not crash. But yeah, if you have a list of questions, or if you think of questions, jot them down. And the next time that you're in a chat with us, we can just go one by one. But as far as the question of what it means when you're not getting the messages, I'm hungry, from your body, you're not feeling it. So normally, you know, when you're hungry, you start to feel a rumble in your stomach. Or if you have to pee, you feel like you got to pee. And it'll be gradual. So I don't have that problem all the time. I think, and some people have it worse than others. But I know both people with autism and people with ADHD can have poor interoception. And I think it's INTER, interoception, CEPTION. I might not be spelling it right, but poor interoception. So the interoception is your body's process of giving you the message of what it needs. And
that's really interesting. That sounds like a vagus nerve issue, because it's the vagus nerve that reports to your brain that you're not in fight or flight, that you can actually rest and digest.
Right. So you have the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is the one that's fight or flight, and the parasympathetic nervous system is rest and digest. So your vagus nerve is kind of like, it's not quite at your spine, but it's close to the back, but it kind of goes straight up and down. And one of the things that when I was in nursing school, they talked about, so if you were to like hold your breath or push in, hold your abs really, really tight, it actually stimulates that vagus nerve, and you can then get sleepy. It stimulates it. And that's why sometimes when people are straining on the bathroom, they pass out. Sorry to be TMI, but yeah, we learned about that in nursing school. You learn about a lot of things that are not necessarily appropriate for daytime TV, because you're talking about bodily. That's part of the job. I apologize to anybody. I hope nobody's eating lunch.
No, but that's really interesting. I've been doing vagus nerve meditations because I realize I'm stuck in fight or flight like perpetually. And so
Me too.
A couple of weeks ago, I just started doing these vagus nerve sleep meditations, and I did notice a difference. I actually
Yeah.
noticed I just don't feel as much like a huge meteor is going to fall out of the sky on top of my head,
And I
or
think if you're,
something, or something, or something, or something. And Mark was saying the same things, like we're very similar. He always feels like something horrible is about to happen. And I'm
yeah,
like, that's that reptilian brain. And he's like, I wonder if that's why I can't cry, because
you are waiting for the other shoe to drop. And so
yeah,
you're holding it together. And I would say part of that is that, guys, if you think about how, so there's a
impending doom.
physiological part, but there's also the cultural part. So guys' brains are a little bit different than women's brains. So you have the physiological, there's a little bit of difference.
However, the
But there's also the
female,
cultural conditioning from when you're little to adulthood, and boys tend to be conditioned not to have feelings. So
right.
if you're conditioned time and time again, don't cry, be good. So he might have different conditionings than us. So
Mm.
his not wanting to feel fear, and yes, so if you hold things inside, that feeling's not going to go out of you. You're just holding it because you don't want to deal with it. It's a physiological fear response, right? Um, I have an idea for you, Mark, but it's for when you're ready. Right now, if you're kind of sorting through some of this, it might be a little soon. I would consider, if you are open to it, to actually getting a counselor. And that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. I know depending on what part of the country or what part of the world you're at, some people are open to it and some people aren't. But think of it as whatever counselor you get, if they're suited to you, and you might have to try more than one to find somebody who vibes with you, that isn't too clinical, that just, licensed clinical social worker, those kind, like a therapist, other than a psychiatrist is very much in the head. They want to diagnose you, give you a pill and send you on your way. That's fine. But when you want to get to like the actual dynamics of being helped with coming up with some strategies and tools to deal with some of these things, such as this chronic anxiety. So you can help that with some medications, but so what you want to do is you want to talk to a counselor, because now this counselor is going to have access to any medications you take, and they can get a full workup so they know what is safe and what is not safe, and they will get a much better feeling of what would be right for you. And you can even just see somebody and just talk to them about some of this stuff, and they will be able to start you on your journey. They may be able to get an idea of where you fit in here as far as what symptoms you relate to, and you can start getting some books. You can start looking at content creators. I don't think that there's a one size fits all. I don't think that it's like 100%. Unfortunately, because it's so different from every person, it may end up being a process for you. And it's frustrating, and especially if you're older, there's a certain amount of grief that goes with that. So if you end up being late diagnosed as an adult, it kind of puts all of these difficulties you had as a child, these interactions with friends, these interactions with family, why you couldn't do what they wanted you to do and you felt like a failure, all of these things that you had ingrained that you should have been able to just do it, you might find out that it's not your fault. You'll still, like for me, I still struggle with this feeling like I should just be able to get over it. I think part
Oh,
of it is
God.
being a Gen Xer. And it's just reinforced every time I go to work. Even though I've sat with my boss and I explained him everything, then the next time that my lateness becomes an issue, because I explained him time blindness, and he brought me into an office and he said, now we've talked about this before. And I thought, wait a minute, I explained this to you so you know I have a disability.
It's called a reasonable accommodation, and you need to get it in writing.
Yeah, I need to actually legally go. I have to go get the actual physical diagnosis. And just because my job, I'm a cashier, and it's not really where I'm supposed to be at, to me, it's not worth the stress. So I'm like, whatever, because I'm going to use the frustration to push me into something that I really should be doing where I can actually make money. And, you know, when I was first diagnosed at 25, I kind of thought, well, I keep choosing these jobs that aren't suited to me. I'm choosing these either corporate jobs or very hierarchical jobs where you're either being micromanaged or you have to be exactly on time and you have to be exactly productive. And that is not conducive to somebody who has ADHD or autism because you want to have autonomy. You have a mind of your own and you know this, but they don't care. So that's a process I'm actually reevaluating right now because I'm tired of dealing with this and I'm older and I'm done. I'm so fed up. I'm tired of people making me feel like there's something wrong with me. And I told him, I said, he goes, can't you get some charts and some tools from your counselor? I said, at this point, I'm 49 years old. And I said, my father used to sit by the clock and I used to get punished if I was 15 seconds late to go to the bus. If that didn't work and everything I've tried for 49 years of my freaking life, what am I going to be able to do now? You don't think that there's a system she can teach me that I haven't tried? Oh, can't you get medication? Yeah,
Well,
I
and
take
really, it's none of
medication.
his fucking business. He needs to, sorry for cursing, but he needs to just mind his own business and give you a reasonable accommodation. Like, I might be 10, 15 minutes late.
That's what I was asking him to do, but he says he can't do it until I have to do the, he's a very, okay, so there's one thing I don't like about him, but at the same time, originally, when he first came to our store, I respected about him. He's a by the book guy, which I usually like because,
He's probably on the spectrum, black and white, protocol, follow protocol.
yeah, yeah, I did, it kind of was like de facto using it against me. I don't think, he's a good guy. I actually do like him. It's
He must
just,
not know that much about ADA then.
you know what's really weird is when I was having that talk with him, he was like, oh, yeah. So he's telling me that his mother-in-law or sister-in-law has that. Oh, yeah, and she loses time. And I feel like saying, what the F are you saying to me? I was just, yes, you understand then. And I know he has OCD. I didn't say that, but he does.
Yeah.
Another reason why, and this isn't against him or anything. And
No,
you
I
know
get
what?
it.
It's not my job because he's on his own path. You know, maybe that's not, you know, I don't know about the other side. I don't know if there's reincarnation, but if there is, maybe he's got to go through a different set of things. And it's not
Oh,
for me.
absolutely, right?
It's
Yeah.
not for me to go, hey, you got OCD. You're under the spectrum too. No. I did kind of mention it to him when I was telling him I was thinking about starting the channel. And he's actually the one that encouraged me. He says, do it. I'm like, really? Because I was like, I'm a Gen Xer. I know I bring that up a lot, but if anyone who has grown up in our generation, or maybe my parents, the boomer generation, you didn't talk unless you were spoken to. You sucked it up. You didn't feel sorry for yourself. And if you did, you went to your room and you cried by yourself and nobody would listen to you. And if you wailed and cried and threw a temper tantrum like every other kid, you're locked in there. So they left you there and they didn't give you any attention until you learned to calm down and shut up. So it's kind of ingrained in you not to go to authority figures and feel sorry for yourself. You're supposed to figure it out on your own. But it's really, well, that's my cultural experience. I don't know if it's a New England thing.
I mean, I've heard a lot of Gen Xers talking about their experiences, and I'm like, well, that wasn't my experience at all. It's like, that's how your parents parented you.
Because theirs was even way more strict than that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely.
Way. My mom's side, way like insane.
My mom said I just would pout and slam my door a lot.
Oh, if I did that, especially as a teenager, I risked being potentially hit. They were still threatening me with the spanking stick. Yeah, that's a really, I shouldn't really, I don't want to say anything negative. My father's passed away and I love him dearly. And I know that they did while they were raised, you know?
Yeah.
When we look back at I'm an adult now and I've done my time in counseling trying to process some of this stuff. And it takes a long time because especially if your parents are stricter than other families and you don't understand it as a kid and you feel gaslit. But eventually as you become more of an adult and you have more of a different perspective, you have more independence versus being a 20-something closer to teenage years, you realize that, yeah, it wasn't ideal, but They probably had it a lot worse. I know my mom's side of the family, they were a lot more strict.
Well,
My
and also
grandmother
to realize that
scared me.
probably your parents, one or both of them also were ADHD. Like my mom, she's probably just like, autistic as me. And
Her
now she's
sister,
just so burned out that
my
she's
mom,
just,
yeah,
happy to sit there and just like, I just want to fucking sit here. And I totally get that now. It's like
yeah.
the process of doing stuff is so daunting to me at this point because I know there's like a billion steps. And I used to think everything took 5 minutes and I would start doing it. And it's
That's
like five
executive
hours later.
dysfunction. Yeah, that's exact. So those are like ADHD, classic ADHD symptoms, which you might have even not have ADHD. Now that I'm learning how there are similarities and learning that I always thought as executive dysfunction or executive functioning of your brain being something that was ADHD only. And then recently, as I've been learning about autism, that they get it too sometimes. So yeah, it's rough. So part of what I do that I have been kind of like revisiting the last couple years since I started seeing a counselor again. I went many years without seeing one. I'm like, I'm fine. I was born this way. F it. I'm going to find a way. I'm not going to feel sorry for myself. Screw this. I'm just, what's going to change anyway? I'm the one who's got to figure it out. I don't want to be special. I don't want to be disabled. So I just sucked it up. But then, years go by and you go from job to job and you have trouble holding a job. And these problems don't go anywhere. They're still there. And beating
Even
yourself
once you're
up.
diagnosed. Even once
Yeah.
you're diagnosed, it's like it's
Yeah.
not a magical cure. Oh, I'm diagnosed, I'm fixed.
Right.
No.
And the thing that hurts the most for me is I can't tell you how many times I've sit down with my parents, or sit down with people and try to explain to them the symptoms I have and give them the scientific facts of how the brain works and what parts of the brain it is and why it happens. And they're like, oh, okay. But then they go right back to being mad at you if you're not doing those things. And it's like, why? And so what do? I just feel alone and I just withdraw because I know they're not going to understand anyway. And it's not their fault. I think it's a human nature thing. It's sad. It just feels like I don't understand. If somebody came to me and told me something they were struggling with, what I do, I don't know if this is a neurodivergent thing. Maybe we all do this, or maybe because we have empathy because we struggled so much and we felt alone. I immediately try to think of different situations. As soon as somebody explains it to me, I filter it through my brain. And then I tried to imagine what it would be like, even if I don't struggle with the same things. And then I would ask them, is it okay if I ask you questions, especially if it's somebody I just met? I'm just reading something Mark wrote. My problem isn't holding the job. It's asking for the job and then feeling like they're going to fire me every day. Oh.
It's that
So
social
where
rejection. That social
that came from
rejection
somewhere,
is
though.
there's some
That
trauma
comes from
there.
somewhere. Yeah,
There's
that
trauma
comes
about
from.
social rejection. Once when you're on the
No. That
spectrum,
could be rejection from teachers, previous bosses. It
yeah,
could be like
it's still
reinforced
social
from
rejection.
authority. For
And
me, I think of it as a criticism thing. Because what do? We look up to our bosses and our parents, our authority figures, for figuring out if we're doing okay. Because we didn't we didn't know about neurodiversity. Those are the people who showed us the example of what we should be striving towards. And if they're disappointed, then we must be doing something wrong.
yeah, I
And
think to
then
me, this sounds like CPSD from social rejection, from being outcast for your whole life and not knowing why. I was outcast a lot, didn't know why. And then when
I
I was
was from bosses.
diagnosed, I was like, oh, okay, I get it. And I do,
I,
Sheri, I need to just put this in there real quick.
oh yeah, sorry.
Obviously, I'm not a professional. And here's why I think you are on the autistic spectrum as well.
Me?
Because you have your very specific special interests and you want to share and know the facts. You're
Yeah.
kind of black and white. You like the facts and you want to tell people about it, and they don't get it. And you're like, but facts, data.
Because
And they're
they're the
like,
one coming to me getting upset that I'm not doing XYZ. And
yeah.
if I don't figure out how to do XYZ when you're young, you're going to get grounded for a few weeks. and you're in trouble. And so then you're not only you're heartbroken, you disappointed your parents, you internalize it, you feel like a failure, and you're mad at them because you're trying to talk to them. Because, you know, on the one side, yeah, my parents were strict, but on the other side too, one thing they did really well is they wanted to make sure that because there's some things they've seen either with other parents or other situations that the parents tell the kids, you're bad. They wanted to make sure to tell me I'm not bad, what I did was bad. And they did invite me to talk to them if I wanted to, and sometimes I could. So that was like that pull. And then my father would always change the rules though. And so that gave me a constant sense of anxiety, because as soon as something I wasn't able to live up to whatever the rule was, he goes, okay, that's it. We're going to do something else. New rule. All the time.
Yeah, that's a challenge.
And I think, you know, going back to when he was young, my grandfather died very young because there's a heart condition in my family. It's actually, I've never seen any material written about it. It's like this super rare. They might be the only people that have it. I don't know. That's a whole nother conversation if you want me to geek out in that whole medical thing. I can.
Okay, but here's the thing, okay?
But I was just going to say the dynamics that they went through, like they went through trauma with their parents, right? And then their parents went through trauma with their parents. So each generation we get a little better, but we're going to make mistakes with our own kids. So we don't want to like demonize them because, you know, we know it's not okay, some of the things they did, but if you ever go to talk to them about it as an adult, it just helps you and it helps them. Like, even if you can't, like, let's say you have parents who are narcissists. Did you say we can't say that word?
Yes, there are people. Say that on my channel. I don't mind if you armchair diagnose on my channel.
I'm just saying that they exist, and I don't know who has it. I know they exist. I have probably known some. It's very challenging for people who have somebody who's a parent that is, and then that's a whole nother kind of therapy they have to go through because
the amount of say it's genetic. How would you not have a parent on the spectrum?
Are we talking about narcissism, or are we talking about neurodiversity?
Oh, anything, all of it.
Oh, I was just saying
genetic. So
yeah. Well, the narcissism and borderline. I'm not diagnosing anyone. I just happen to have known a family. And they still live, and I want them to be happy, and I don't want to say anything, but I will just say that there is a genetic component as far as that one you have both. So if somebody has a personality, and you can go, I'm not an expert, go to Dr. Ramani. She has a website there. She's a therapist that specializes in personality disorders and narcissism. She has a lot of material. Yeah. I like her a lot because I feel like because some of them aren't good people. They don't care. You know, some of them are like sociopaths. But
there's the antisocial personality disorder group. Narcissists, socio, and psychopaths.
But those are the things that we think of, the layman. But each one has its own personality disorder. And a personality disorder is a combination of, you have a genetic predisposition, plus you have abuse and or neglect, and they need them both together. That forms that person in that way. So if you know somebody or have been in a relationship with somebody, your chances are you're not going to blame them because you get close to them and you know what they went through growing up. So you don't necessarily see it.
Are you saying that?
I'm just sorry. I'm just like reliving my past right now. I'm sorry.
Are you saying that the antisocial personality types are caused by nurture? They're not nature, they're nurture?
Both. It's both. Okay. That's my understanding.
You need a predisposition for that.
Now, I had to go learn about it because I had to go into therapy about it because I had somebody in my life that had it and I didn't even know for like almost a decade. And so I was so messed up. I was a shell of a person because I was like the codependent in the relationship, not getting too much into it, but I was that caretaking type of person. So I didn't know. And what ended up happening is finally I had to stop and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go from friendship to friendship, relationship to relationship, and here I am thinking I'm picking different people, but I keep reliving the same thing.
Are you familiar?
So,
Go ahead.
so I thought, what's going on with me? And I didn't want to say that because obviously that person had a personality disorder and they did things that were not okay. And that was not my fault. And nothing that the other people, you're not responsible for somebody else's behavior and you're not responsible for somebody else's happiness. You're also not responsible for saving someone. And that I think mostly women, we want to do that. I think part of it is our codependent culture. But
Sheri.
this gets so complicated. This is a
Sheri.
mess. Yeah.
Sheri.
The stuff that I learned is, what, are we frozen?
No.
The stuff that I learned,
Sheri!
What?
Thank you. Hey, have you heard of limerence?
I was just going to say this was taught to me because I had to learn it. I didn't want to learn it. I'm not an expert. I'm just telling everyone I'm not an expert. Go find books on it. They'll tell you about it.
I'm curious because this is really interesting. I've just learned about this. Do you know what limerence is?
Yeah, it's when you become enmeshed. It's enmeshment.
Love addiction. Yeah, it's like
it's enmeshment. You lose yourself to a person. So I didn't know that word for it back then. They just called it enmesh. So when you become like your life with a person, see, this gets kind of murky now because then we're going to be talking about marriages and long-term relationships because there's a potential of this happening in any relationship. When it depends on the dynamic, it depends on the personality. I'm not an expert. I just know certain things because I went through them and I was forced to go into therapy about it because I got messed up. So I only know some things. And don't take my word for it. Anybody who wants to learn about psychology and relationships and all of that stuff, please go to counseling and tell your story to them because my situation might not apply. And anything that might be my advice might not be good advice for somebody else. So I'm no expert. I just know that they exist and sometimes it's not their fault. And some of them are not good people. And thank God we have Dr. Ramani because Dr. Ramani and people like her help educate us, the people who are the codependent types. And I'm thinking that's kind of a neurodivergent thing. You know how they talk about how we're like kind-hearted and we think literally. So if we wouldn't lie, we don't think somebody would lie to us. So there's almost sometimes with some neurodivergent people, I guess it's not across the board. It is a spectrum. We don't all have the same symptoms, right? Which I never knew. You know, you think spectrum, you used to think more to less. So higher functioning, lower functioning, or higher support needs, lower support needs. But now that video on my community, sorry, not my community, my folders, if you look at what is neurodivergence and you click on that first one, that's the PBS, they go over this very well. And they show in the whole spectrum, it's more like a circle for autism. So they did mostly focus on autism, but they do show that ADHD and other things are under the spectrum as well. But just as an example of autism, she was saying we used to think the spectrum was more or less, but now they know there's a whole range of symptoms, right? So let's say some people have trouble. Right. So some people, I might have this symptom, and this symptom, and somebody else might have the other one. So we might be completely different, but we might be both under the spectrum. So I don't have problems with yakking, as you guys can tell. I don't have problems. I did when I was younger. It was a learned thing. I didn't actually learn how to kind of like act like everybody else till I was probably 14 or 15. I didn't really, God, this is going to get into the weeds. I don't know how far back you want me to go. I don't know. Are you gone? What happened? I see your screen is blank.
Mine?
Yeah.
Oh, hang on. Is it still gone?
I wonder if I'm frozen. Can you see me?
Yeah, I can. I'm looking at my monitor and yeah, I don't know why my video is gone. That's weird.
I haven't seen anybody type anything since
Yeah,
Mark.
because I got rid of the people who were typing stupid shit.
Okay,
I don't know
got it.
why it's gone, but we've been on for 48 minutes. I wanted you to get some
See,
information out so that you could make some videos for your channel from it.
I
You know,
thought, see, this time blindness. You know how this felt like 20 minutes to me.
yeah, I know, right?
Did it feel like? Did it feel
Yeah, it
like
goes
40
by really
minutes?
fast. It does go
Hmm.
by really fast. I know you're burned out from yesterday. I know how it doesn't feel like you might get burned out from a live, but you can.
Yeah, I
And
probably will
so,
today. I should
you
go.
know, I think we've accomplished our
Um,
goal for this particular live.
I was
And
kind of all over the place, and I'm not sure if Mark is still driving. Don't text back, but I don't even know. You asked me the one question about the interoception.
mhm.
Was there anything else he told you he wanted to know if he can't text it in here?
No, not really. It's just kind of like he's discovering certain things about himself, our spectrum symptoms,
Yeah,
doesn't know what they're called, like me. A lot of the times we have these personality traits and we don't know that it's related
right.
to being neurodivergent. We just think it's our own personality. And it's like, oh, wow, other people do that. Like we were talking about, you know, how we sleep, like with the T Rex arms. And
Yeah,
Jonathan
that
was
freaked
saying
me
he
out.
rolls up like a joint.
I go like
And, you
I
know,
roll on my I sleep on my side,
yeah. And
and I have to have a pillow or a stuffed animal.
Mark sleeps like in a kind of like a coffin, kind of like really I take that to mean sort of like a nice tight,
On your back?
he doesn't sleep in a coffin. I don't know what he sleeps in or how he sleeps, but he was saying that it's kind of how I do it, where
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
more comfortable on my couch that sort of angles backwards and down,
Yeah.
so it rolls me into the corner and holds me and
Yep,
cocoons
and
me
it
and
supports
swaddles
your
me.
back.
And then instead of like a flat mattress, it's so uncomfortable because even if it's soft, I can't sleep on a soft bed. I like hard beds, but my body is not flat. And so
Right.
sleeping on something that sort of kind of swaddles me back in the corner has been so much better for me. And so we were
Mhm.
talking about sleep. We were talking about just different things. And it's like, yeah, that's those kinds of things seem to be neurodivergent things.
The sleeping,
Just all different kinds of
all of
things
it.
we were touching on. Yeah, it was really interesting.
Yeah, and
And
it's
he was
funny.
saying that he thinks his mom has PTSD,
Oh
and it's interesting.
no.
It's like CPSD, probably complex, right? And so, just
Yeah.
sort of talking about that stuff. We've sort of touched on a bunch of different types of things, but he has a way of phrasing it. I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. Oh, we were also talking about that feeling of social rejection
Yeah.
and how acetaminophen, which is Tylenol, isn't Tylenol acetaminophen?
Yes.
Okay, acetaminophen acts on the part of your brain that registers social rejection, pain from withdrawal of gambling and alcoholism, and a knife stab wound. They all register in the same spot of the brain, which acetaminophen acts on. So if you're in a breakup, you take a little Tylenol now and again, and it helps you not feel
Oh.
so horrible, and it
So
gets
it's
you
not
through.
as knee jerk reaction. Oh my
it's
god.
it's not as painful. It calms that pain down.
Oh
And
my
then
god, it's so freaking bad. So bad.
Jonathan
Oh,
said that hang on, Jonathan said that the acetaminophen
that makes sense.
lowers your, what was it? Is he still on? Jonathan said, thank you, Hunter, that the
Thank you.
acetaminophen lowers your empathy.
I think that I scrolled up and saw that when I popped in. You saw my comment. My when I commented you, I had just kind of popped in. I think I started listening to you a few minutes before, but for some reason, I don't know if it was the microphone you were using, it was very quiet. So it took me a minute to I had to do the Bluetooth and have the sound come through a speaker so I could hear you. And then I scrolled up and I saw that and I got confused. So I'm like, "Oh, I wonder what it is. What what?" And I saw that particular thing about the
Acetaminophen
empathy.
lowers your empathy. Yeah, it's
See,
really
I don't.
interesting.
I'd like to look at how, but you know what? As I've been learning about the opioids, um, I was trying to figure out. I was talking to Curtis. No, I have to ask because I don't want to test things. I don't want to get addicted. I don't want to do anything dangerous. I'm good. I get enough problems. So I was asking him because he was before he was doing what he's doing now, because he has certain things in his family, he was going to be a rehabilitation counselor for people with alcohol and drugs. So, but then it was like too much, kind of like how you doing your page about autism, after a while, you're like, this is too much. Because
Yeah.
you want some
So
space
annoyed
from
too.
it too. You don't want to just be steeped in the difficulties all the time, right?
Well, and the thing, like, it's not the entirety of who I am.
Right.
I don't know why my screen is black, but yes, Hunter, this is Sheri that you're looking at right
Hello.
now.
Hi, Hunter. How are you? Where
Do
are
you guys
you
have,
at?
do you all have any questions for Sheri about
I'm
the,
not an expert. I'm just another neurodivergent person and just sharing things that I've learned. If anybody's just jumping on or they don't know me or Genevieve, I could see how it might. I'm just trying to be mindful that it doesn't come across like I think I'm an
Sheri's
expert.
not
And
a
if I'm wrong,
doctor.
I'm not a
Sheri's not a
doctor
doctor, but do
and
you
I'm
have
not
any
a therapist.
questions about neurodivergency that she might be able to address? Because she nerds out on this stuff and can help explain certain things.
I
That's why we
had to.
started the live today, because Mark from our other chat was asking about poor interoception.
Poor interoception. You know
Okay.
what I was thinking? I'm wondering if at some point Mark would ever be interested in doing a live with us.
I know, I was thinking about that too. Yeah.
That would be really interesting.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah.
Who am I avoiding? Hunter thinks I'm avoiding someone.
Because they expect us to pay attention to this chat instead of talking to each other.
Oh, it's hard for me. I have
Don't
ADHD.
don't
I
don't
don't.
pay attention to the chat, because you won't be able to focus on what you're saying.
Yeah.
We're having a
Especially,
conversation on a topic right now. If you do have questions about the topic, ask a question. But by all means, Sheri, go right ahead, and we're going to wrap it up in about 8 minutes so that you don't burn out. It's been an hour almost.
I lost my train of thought.
Yeah, I know. Don't look at the chat. So we were
No.
talking, you said Mark and live stream. I think that'd be really great because he's just
Yeah.
discovering, and it's not like, okay, we can't diagnose you, but let's just cover some of the things that you've discovered and talk about it.
Because what Jay Ace wrote, that's that. I was starting to get to something when I was talking about the Health and Human Services. Now I remember what I was going to say. Sorry, I just want to throw this in really quick. When I was learning about opioids, which go in the actual part of the brain that they affect, the pain center, and how that pain center of the brain also has to deal with some emotions. I just kind of was like pulling that out from what I learned, and then what you told me about the acetaminophen and
Oh,
empathy.
yeah.
So that's really curious to me. That's really curious to me. I'd like to learn more about that.
You have to be really careful, of course, because acetaminophen can destroy your liver. So if you're going through a
Yes.
bad breakup or something, you have to be really careful not to rely on it. But when it gets too much and you're like, if the pain is too much, I
Oh,
need to call them. I'm going to text them 100 times. Take a Tylenol and give it 20 minutes.
so
And listen
what
to some
you
gangster rap too. Gangster rap is great for
is
breakups.
from me being in nursing school previously, I will say about acetaminophen, it is bad for your liver if you take too much. So that's why if you ever look at cold medicine bottles or, Tylenol bottles, anything that's got, especially with the cold medicine, you can get multiple different kinds of medicine and you might have acetaminophen in each thing. And they'll highlight that in yellow. So they're reminding you, and nobody looks at labels, right? There was this woman, I think
Just
last year,
ignore him.
and that she ended up in the hospital needing a liver transplant because she took
Mm.
multiple kinds of cold medicine and didn't realize. So as long as you are paying attention and you only take Tylenol as it's directed, and you, of course, double check with your doctor, make sure it's safe for you, because if you're taking other kinds of blood thinners or other medication that might interact, most people can take it, but as long as you're taking it as the instructions say and not more, it's safe, you know? But that's it. Just make sure you take it as directed. Don't, and this is really important, just anybody who takes any medication, you always, as much as it seems like silly, especially if you have a cold and you're desperate, don't double dose on things. As desperate as you are, don't do it. Don't do it, because it's there. Those limitations are there for a reason.
Exactly. Let me just make a pause here. I want to do a short video specifically for you to cut
For
this
me?
chunk that we're going to do and put it on your video. So hang on one second.
But
Just be
you're not
quiet.
in the video.
Oh shit. Let's go ahead and restart because I think this is really important. Okay, we're just gonna go ahead and restart. I'll send you a new link.
Okay.
Thanks
Bye,
everybody
guys.
for
We'll
joining.
be right back.
And go ahead. This will be on Sheri's page as well. So go ahead and like, subscribe, find Sheri at
Please.
Lady Phoenix _111, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.
Peace. Bye.